And welcome to the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight, a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee. Valerie Sarwak serving as chair, and of course, the Libertarian National Committee, Joseph Bishop Henson as chair. As always, joining us tonight is John Gabso. He's running the big board, and I'm your host, Pat Ford. It's been the practice of this show for the few weeks that we've been in place here as your Monday night Libertarian infotainment to connect with the most newly elected, newly minted, if you will, hot off the press, Libertarian State Party and affiliate chairs. So joining us tonight is Jen Moore. She's from the great state of Pennsylvania. Jen, welcome to a Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight.
Hello, thank you for having me on. I didn't expect to be back quite so soon, but I guess I'm the woman of the hour right now.
Absolutely. There was a remarkable turnout for the most recent convention in Pennsylvania. People literally from, well, around the country. And there was, as there was in California later in the weekend, and much credit, by the way, to JBH and a few of the crew who managed to make both conventions. That's better men and women than I am. But it was a provocative, well-attended convention where people were passionate. They embraced their political beliefs. They embraced libertarianism. All sorts of folks were there, if you will, outside what became sort of a revival tent for the Libertarian Party. Caucuses, different support people. You know, it was a revelation. And let me, first off, it's one of the few out-of-state conventions I've been to this year, so it's unfair. I get the sense that all year long, since the crisis, if you will, has lightened up, that Libertarian Party affiliates are putting on one hell of a show. But I had the opportunity to be there in Pennsylvania. And let me tell you, from the fundraiser I was able to attend Friday night for one of your congressional candidates, through the event, the different sidebars that were hosted, through Sunday morning when a remarkable prayer / breakfast / meeting / conversation was held. It was incredibly well run. And I just have to give my hats off to the people in Pennsylvania who did all that work to make lots of people from lots of different parts of the country feel welcome and part of the organization. And the logistics were handled splendidly. So my hats are off to the Pennsylvania people and to all the states that have hosted big conventions this year and brought people in from around the country to talk and to coalesce, if you will. What are your reflections, if you will, on what was clearly I'll just use the word hectic, a pretty hectic weekend for you and the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania?
Well, first I want to say my colleague, the new Eastern Vice Chair, Adam Reinhart, he referred to it as Murphy's Convention, and that is absolutely the best way to refer to this convention because everything that could go wrong did go wrong leading up to it. Because of the state regulations, our meeting space was too small. We had to move it outdoors. The hotel didn't have the staff that they expected to because of the pandemic. So we had to, bring in caterers and we had to hire bartenders. But our convention committee that was, chaired by Bridget Reinhart was amazing. And or Ryan Smith, I'm sorry. They were amazing, and they just they dealt with everything that came our way. But as far as the convention itself, I just have to say that it was probably the most difficult day that I've ever experienced as a political activist. I never expected our 180 rule not to be waived because it's always been done. Just to give you a little bit of background on that, we have what is essentially an anti-takeover rule in our bylaws that the people who have been party members for 180 days and are registered libertarian, they need to vote by 2/3 to allow new members to vote. And for the first time ever, that wasn't waived. So it was about 50-50 brand new members who were there versus people who were over 180. There was a lot of concern about the out-of-state voters who were there. By not waiving 180, they actually kind of nixed that. There were a lot of people from out of state, but most of them were under 180. We only ended up with 5 people voting who were from out of state. I think that there were 8 who were qualified, but only 5 voted. So it didn't really have any effect on outcomes. And that's a normal year. We would have a handful of people from out of state. So, the people who were under 180, they were shut out from voting. And I looked back and, some of these people were from counties that I helped organize. About half of them were my supporters. They were people who are, officers in their counties. Now, I have to say, like, less than 20 of them were like active participants. The other ones, the other 70 or, so who weren't able to vote, they were people who, there were multiple groups that were whipping votes for this. We had, the Mises event, we had the Cathedral Caucus, whoever those guys are, I think that's kind of a loosely formed. And of course we had my team who was whipping votes. So, I know that a lot of the people who were there to support me were family members, friends, children of, activists who were supporting me, who were all under 180. So, it was really hard to see all those people who came there to support me not be able to vote. But, I can't really speak for the delegation about why they chose to do that. But it wasn't even close. I mean, they didn't waive 180. They needed 2/3 and maybe had about a third. And I know that a lot of people have held it against me when they've seen the rising votes where I voted to end discussion. That was mostly because I felt that the vote wasn't going to change and we really just needed to move on with business. There was so much talk about out of state, we didn't get to bylaws, and that was one of the bylaws proposals. In fact, I had actually motioned, my last motion as Eastern Vice Chair, to extend time to discuss bylaws, and that might have been one of the things we would have been able to address if we would have, been able to go on for another half an hour. But it was a very long day. All we got done was officer elections, and it was just tough. I mean, there were a lot of emotions.
We've got to move forward at
Yeah.
some point.
Yeah.
And there's the urgent business of the party, the philosophy, the members, the statement of principles to move forward with. Pennsylvania is in very large sense nationally a battleground state. It's very much in play in terms of at every level politically, from national down onto local. You were on a few weeks ago, and we talked extensively. We spent over an hour talking about the Molten maneuver, and how the folks, you, Dr. Molten, and a team of people really embraced that and made that happen, which has sent a clear signal really to the rest of the state parties on how to embrace that. So there's opportunity now going forward. And I assume as state party chair, you're going to need all hands on deck, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been one of the first things that I've done as chair is I've been trying to meet with some of the various factions and talk about how we can work together. And I just have to say that they have been wonderful. I met with some guys out in Pittsburgh. I'm on my way home from Michigan last weekend. I'm hoping to get with the central and the western contingents too. We just have so many great people in this party and we have so many jobs to do. But that's the main thing. I mean, we're here to run candidates and we're here to win elections. And right now, our primary just happened, so we're waiting for those write-in results to be tabulated. And when they're tabulated, we're going to be able to find those uncontested seats. And our goal is to win at least 100 elections this year. But in talking to people, one of the other concerns is the messaging in, the hope that we'll do more of this. So, in talking to people and trying to formulate a plan moving forward, one of the things that we've kind of considered is if we do find a really motivated candidate, hopefully they'll run for a contested election too, because you can run for both. And then as a candidate, they can address some of that messaging and, hopefully we can get them in the local news and really push that stuff out there because we're here to do that too, to educate the voter and let them know who the LP is.
Mm-hmm. So let's move forward then. Let's talk about the immediate future of the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania. Again, and by the way, just as an aside, when you mentioned the Murphy's convention, I have to tell you, and just wasn't a coach conversation, I never would have known that there was a single hiccup in the background. That's how hard folks worked to make that convention happen. That's how professionally it came off. So despite whatever might have happened behind the curtain, I have to tell you, it was, as the kids say, hella impressive. And I quite frankly thought the tent completed it. It was a spectacular weekend weather-wise, being outside, being able to go outside and cool off for a few minutes, if you will, I think served a lot of people really well. And, so again, my hat's off to your convention committee. Please don't change a thing there. Go ahead,
Thank
buddy.
you to all the people who donated too, because we made up all of that money back from the tents and the extras, the AV that we had that we thought was going to be included with the hotel.
Right.
They just did a great job. They did an
Right.
amazing job.
And you had a volunteer actually running the mixer board right up front, didn't you? I mean, right in the heat of
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the and all the. And again, as someone who's kind of an AV guy off to the side, just drinking it all in, just very. In fact, there's a team there. There's a business for them in the future as meeting planners. But so let's pivot forward then. Let's look at the future, what the future holds, and what your goals and objectives are going to be. We've talked at length again about the molten maneuver, and I got to meet over that day and a half or so all sorts of people from all sorts of a huge state, who are from literally every single corner of the state. Is affiliate formation? Let's talk about that for a few minutes. What's your current affiliate status, and broadly speaking, not trying to pin down exact numbers, but where do you want to go with that, and what methodology? Do you have now 3 vice presidents, or I should say vice chairs?
We have 3 vice chairs, and actually I know these numbers because I was a vice chair up until a week ago. So
Okay.
We have 67 counties, and 22 of them are still unorganized. Some of them, we'll probably put together into, regional committees, but I believe those last 22 within a year, maybe 2 years, we'll have the whole state up and running. And personally, in what was my region, the East, in my time, I helped organize 11 counties, and there's only 3 left. So, we're seeing lots of excitement. We're seeing new counties pop up everywhere. I think that, that's one of my goals, is to help the vice chairs get these last few up and running. I mean, 22 is not that much. And the party's growing. We have the membership.
How does the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania create affiliates? What's your process, and if you're looking to tweak things, because again, you guys have come a long way in a very short range of time here. So what's your process, and what are you going to do, if you will, to enhance it, put a little bit on steroids, fire it up?
Well, my process as vice chair was always to find a reason to go up and find libertarians in that community. During the 2018 campaign, I bought a bunch of signs for our gubernatorial candidate, Ken Krawchuk, and our Senate candidate, Dale Kearns. And I went up to the northern counties and said, I have signs. Does anyone want one? And I just, tried to meet those people. I've gone ahead and just created Facebook pages and tried to, get some interest that way. Sometimes have a social event. The main thing is just to meet libertarians in the community, but you have to find that one crazy person who actually wants to be a leader. There's always a bunch of people who are like, I'll get involved, if you build a committee, but I don't want to take the lead on it. So, once you find that person that says, yes, I'm willing to be the chair of this county, from there, it's pretty easy, as long as you have a few people who are showing up. Within, a few months, a few more drift in, and a few more after that, as long as they're holding regular events. The main thing is just the outreach into that, community. And I have to say, the time that I've been on the board, back in 2018, we didn't really have a good database. It wasn't easy to reach out to people. Now we have all of the data from the Jorgensen campaign. We have all of the national data. We have, our own homegrown database of, members, supporters, donors, where we can send out an email blast. At one point as a vice chair, I was emailing from an Eastern Vice Chair Gmail account. And we just have grown beyond that, where we actually have the resources to do the outreach in these communities. And, it may start with just, showing up and tabling an event or something. But, once you get that contact list, and usually when you say, hey, do you want to organize your county? They're all for it. And it's amazing to see how diverse the different counties that pop up are, and, how they have their own new ideas and they just take them and run with them.
Excellent. Is there a minimum head count to start an affiliate? I mean, do you need to see a group up front that's sort of signed on to the process? Or what type of framework do you establish for that?
So right now, you need to have at least 2 people to be recognized as an affiliate, but you don't get a board vote on the LPPA state board until you have 12 members, which actually is interesting because, if we end up with 67 counties, we could end up with, 67 board reps plus all of our standing committees. I mean, our board has become an assembly. Right now, I think there's 38 voting members on that board. So the meetings can be, pretty huge and cumbersome. But, that's something the chair has to manage. The counties are so excited about getting up to that board vote that it's not something that we can politically take away from them. So, the chair just has to manage it, and we will. It'll be fine. I mean, people are pretty respectful, and we just do timed meetings and, we get through business.
By the way, Holly Ann Taylor just pointed out that Lehigh County is about to come back. Now, I'm assuming Lehigh County is at Allentown, Bethlehem, that area?
It is, and Lehigh actually was the very last county that I met with, and it was at my very last meeting as the Eastern Vice Chair. I motioned for them to be recognized, so they are back up and running.
Excellent. If I could point out to Holly Ann, though, there's one significant issue as libertarians that we need to address. On the way back from Pittsburgh, I wanted to stop at the Waffle House, and they were closed at 8 o'clock at night. So, Holly Ann, there's political pressure that can be brought to bear on that. Please, immediately reconcile that situation. That, by the way, I guess the Bethlehem, for the record, the Bethlehem Waffle House is the northeasternmost Waffle House in America, I believe. And if you live in Providence, Rhode Island, as I do, that is a serious issue.
I've never been to a Waffle House, Pat, but the Bethlehem one is only about 45 minminutes from me. So I need some libertarians in Lehigh to come to breakfast with me.
All right. How about a meeting there? Can if Holly Ann, if you're watching, if you can weigh in on that weighty issue, if you will, because there's a special place in carb heaven for you, Ms. Moore, if you have not yet. And just the important word is smothered. Just remember that, okay? Smothered. Anyway, you folks are the masters at candidate development. Let's rehash a little bit about what your ideal is for this year in terms of candidate support. What do you think you're going to be able to roll out this time? What are some of the techniques that you'd like to try?
Well, I mean, of course, being a municipal year, the Molt maneuver is the biggest thing. So we are going to, identify these seats. We're going to send letters and say, hey, if you run for office, if you get on the ballot, you'll probably win. The big piece of that is just, training people in ballot access. We actually have a huge elections committee right now. I don't know, there's 8 or 10 of us on it, but, we're going to need all hands on deck in the counties to follow up because it's intimidating. Even if you only need 10 or 15 signatures to go out and actually ask people for the signature to get on the ballot, I actually enjoy doing it, but I have to admit the first time I ran for office, it was a hump to get over, just, working up the courage to go out there and do it. So, the biggest support that we can give this year is to just help people gain the ballot and understand what they need. And then if they don't make the ballot, to help them with writing campaigns. If we go out and hand out cards at these polling places for an hour and there's nobody on the ballot, they're going to win. If they, so I mean, it really is all hands on deck to just get them ballot access. And that's one thing, there a lot goes into that campaign between August 2nd when we need to get on the ballot and November. But then starts the real work of serving, a 4 or 6 year term in public office. I can tell you as an elected auditor, you have to make compromises and, I have a job that is only a few days a year versus the people who will be elected to constable and town council and supervisor and, all the other positions that, meet at least a couple times a month in these communities. It's a lot of work. So, we not only need to be there for them to get them on the ballot and get them through their election, but also to just be a network to, help each other once we're actually serving in office.
And that's an area that we've tried to stress on our candidate show. We have people now winning. And the notion, and let me preface this by saying that for a lot of libertarians, many of whom are either full-blown anarchists or certainly minarchists or have roots in anarchism, and anarchy, I should say, the notion of campaigning, the notion of raising money is distasteful, to say the least. We had Mr. McMaster who ran a great campaign, unsuccessfully per se in the sense of winning, but ran a highly principled, highly aggressive campaign in Pennsylvania. We just had him on the other night as sort of a quick follow-up. And he's already back at it. He's given it about another week or two, and then he's right back at it, and he's looking to form, in a sense, to be the shadow state senator for his district, and doggedly stay on top of the issues. That's equally important for someone who's won. And I think as a state, I think you folks are going to lead the way with a handful of affiliates in showing people how to consistently campaign without pandering or without catering to the duopoly or without becoming, as my good friend Dave Demmer says, having the twinkle in the eye for power. In order to continue that influence we have in those cases where we've elected folks, regardless of the matter, regardless of the office, it's irrelevant. These are all libertarian presidents of places that have never had a libertarian before. In order to continue that evolution, that revolution, if you will, we have to keep people elected. Mm-hmm. And so how important is it for you to take those people who, through the molten maneuver, got elected, who may not run unopposed this time because of their, if you will, the way that they were able to take control of those offices. I love that word, take control, right? But how important is that going to be for the people who are winding up for another molten maneuver?
It's one of those things. I have developed very good relationships with, especially the Democrats in my community. The Republicans tried to challenge me off the ballot, so there's a little bit of bad blood there. But we this time around we had ballot initiatives on the ballot to limit the governor's power to declare emergencies. And it gives the governor 21 days, and then it has to, if he wants to make another emergency declaration, it has to be ratified by our legislator. I mean, it can't be vetoed. And that actually passed by a small margin. So we did limit the governor's powers. But the Democrats called me and they wanted to talk to me about that. And of course, their opinion and mine were very different, but we had a respectful conversation about it. They have indicated that they won't run anyone against me this next time. I mean, it's politics, so we'll see. I'm not up for re-elections until 2023. But I think that, it could go either way for a libertarian. You could have a much harder fought race because you've been there, or, maybe you've made friends and they're willing to let you stay there. I mean, they've consistently made me the chair of the board of auditors. So, I think that I'm well liked as much as you can be in politics in my community. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. You may not be uncontested the next time around, but you've developed the relationships and hopefully the experience that you can run a hard campaign. And if you've been active and you've been to those township meetings and people know you and they know what you're about, I think it's going to be easier. I see it happen where, we start out in an area where a libertarian might get 1%, and the next year they might get 2%. I'm telling you, everywhere that we had a down ballot when I was running for Auditor General in 2020, my percentages were 1 or 2% higher. It was just amazing how connected all of it is. We normalize libertarians being in office, being on the ballot, and it makes it easier for the people who come behind us. Mm-hmm. That being said, I want to loop back to talking about Tim McMaster and our special election candidates. Because we're a minor party now, they were on the ballot with no signatures. All 4 of our statewide reached minor party status. This last time around, we needed 2% of the highest vote getter. So they got on the ballot. But the most impressive thing about their races were that all 4 of them were in brand new counties. Brand new county affiliates that, weren't more than 3 or 4 months old. And I'm telling you, having that candidate to rally behind, those committees are up and running, and they're light years ahead of the committees that organized at the same time who didn't have that candidate. Right. It's amazing what having a candidate will do for the development of a county.
Right. Well, there's a sense of urgency. It's all hands on deck. There's jobs to be filled, work to be done. People aren't energized by that, particularly folks who are new to the process. There's a level of day-to-day excitement where you realize that even in a tough election that the odds may be slim, it's a mantra on our LPTV shows. Simply by running for office and running a disciplined, principled libertarian campaign, you are engaging in an act of political bravery and toughness, and you're using under cover of a campaign. you're messaging to people again. How many times have we said this? To people who may never have met a libertarian in their life, much less considered that libertarian for political office. It's undeniable the impact it has. And while people might be a little glum election night, because it was, it was, there was growth, but there ultimately wasn't a win. But again, I looked, and I haven't had a chance to talk with everybody yet. When I meet someone like Tim, who's just willing to dive right back in, as I get a sense all of the candidates are, you understand the nature of building a foundation, and that's what's happening, really all across the country right now. There, despite the gloom and doom, and despite some of the nonsense that happens online, when you get to the true Libertarian Party, and that's the affiliates, that's where the energy is. That's where the action is. So for all those people around the country who are frustrated online, come on down. There's a prize for everybody, isn't there?
I tell people all the time that we are exactly where we need to be for our stage and our development. Right now here in Pennsylvania, we have 4 different townships that have auditor quorum of libertarians. 2 of the 3 auditors are libertarians. That means if there was something shady going on, they would have the power to subpoena the supervisors to court to make them answer for how the tax dollars were being spent. It hasn't had to happen, but we do. And we have places also where we have a couple of people serving on a council of 7, which, is enough to swing votes. But I tell people not to be disheartened. We have a couple of different kinds of campaigns. We have these small municipal ones that we can win. We are winning. We're going to win at least 100 more of them this year. We are going to have, quorums of auditors and, hopefully soon supervisors and council as well. But when you're running for, a national or a, state level, whether it be U.S. Congress or Senate, or if you're running for state rep or state Senate, those are messaging campaigns. And, even if you only get 3%, you help to build the movement. I mean, we organized in the East 7 counties this year because everybody was so excited by our presidential ticket. Nobody should ever, feel like, they're wasting their time when they're running one of those bigger campaigns, because they're so important to fire up our activists, bring more people in, get more boots on the ground. And those people in turn are going to run for these small offices and win. And eventually we're going to win the bigger offices. When I say eventually, I think in the next, 2 to 4 years. We're going to see countywide and statewide where we're very competitive. Excellent.
Excellent. Folks, if you're just joining us, this is the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight. And joining us tonight is the freshly minted chair of the great state of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, of course, Jennifer Moore. Hey, listen, Friday night, we've got, every Friday night is special on Candidate's Corner, but this one is going to be fascinating. Stacey Pressman is joining us. She is running to be the mayor of New York City, and she's running as a libertarian. And she's an accomplished stage professional. She's been involved in everything from the classics to literally to stand-up comedy. She's bringing a completely different perspective and a completely different angle to the mayoralty race. And again, wow, someone running a competitive race as a libertarian who's in it to win it, in New York City. Jen, wasn't that how the commercial went for chili? You're from New York City? Well, yeah, we got somebody running as a serious candidate for the mayoralty of New York City. So stay tuned, Friday night 9 on LPTV. Jen, let's move on to some of the right. Fun, if you will. And to me, there's nothing better than a legislative session because, again, talk about sheer chaos, anarchy, for all the other kind of anarchy, the one that we don't like. Talk about making the sausage. That's what we call it in Rhode Island, making the sausage. And let me tell you, it's pretty ugly. What are the efforts in terms of the LPPA geared towards legislative activism? Do you have a team dedicated to it, or give us sort of the flavor?
We sure do. We have a legislative action committee and we have a legal action committee. And I've actually been talking with both of them since, I became chair a week ago. The 2 main jobs of the chair by our bylaws are to support our subcommittees. Well, there's 3 jobs: support our subcommittees, support our vice chairs, and run the meetings. So I'm just kind of dipping my toes into those 2 committees. I serve on several other ones like finance and elections and bylaws and convention, but These ones I haven't been all of that involved in. There's a lot of talk about, what we can do to help make our ballot access better. Simple things, if we even start small, such as getting on standard paper instead of legal paper so that we could actually email petitions to people. That was one of the big things in our court case this past year. When we were in the middle of a pandemic, we're on lockdown orders. There were no large events. The government wouldn't give us any guidance whatsoever on if we were allowed to petition or not. So we sued them, and they came forward and said, well, why don't you just mail people petitions? Which is interesting because I actually tried that a few years back, and it ended up costing about $22 a signature. So it wasn't, and they're like, well, why don't you email them? It's like, well, who has legal paper at home? Nobody has legal paper at home. If they were on standard paper, it would be easier to do those sorts of things. But that's a small thing. Like, ultimately, we would like to see those signature requirements reduced. And, we would like to work on fruitful coalitions and Second Amendment and decriminalization and, all the things that are important to libertarians.
Right.
So I'm really excited to see what those committees are, doing. They've got great activists on them. And I know that we have a lot of people who are excited to join those committees too. So, please speak up, get in contact with me, and, we can bring it to the state board to have people put on committees if you're interested in serving in that capacity.
Excellent. Activism. Wow. Talk about a target-rich environment. As the world sort of opens its windows and doors and people start to walk outside again, talk to us about some of the activism and activating focuses that you've got for the state of Pennsylvania. Where are the needs, and where do people have an expressed desire to dive in?
Man, I'm seeing a lot of community cleanup efforts right now. That's been the big thing. I'm seeing them all over the state, and it's just absolutely wonderful. I mean, I think that right now, because, everybody's still kind of doing the outdoor things, the weather is getting nicer. But it's just, wonderful to see these libertarians getting together and doing things in their community. I can think of, several candidates in several counties that I've seen with those kind of initiatives. There's a lot of excitement about, tabling more events and holding more events. In fact, the LPPA just bought a bunch of literature to help our counties out when they're doing that sort of thing. I haven't seen it yet. Our executive director ordered, I don't know, a couple $1,000s worth. So there definitely is, that desire to go and do outreach, to do community service projects. I mean, a big part of this is volunteerism. So aside from, just helping the candidates, we're out there showing that there's a better way to do things than, government as well.
Absolutely. Upcoming events. And by the way, folks, if you're listening to the show and you're not a Pennsylvanian, or if you are, and there are large scale events that you and your affiliate are planning to host, please let us know here at Affiliate Spotlight, because we'd be happy to give them some national exposure. In fact, as things lighten up, if you will, and events begin to be planned, in the future, we're going to be dedicating a few minutes at the beginning and end of every show just to go over some of those events so people know nationally. A couple of angles. Number one, if it's something they can remotely participate in, like the Alaskan Gold Rush, they can do that, and we can promote that. If, in fact, you're looking for a little bit of maybe few donations to help get it up and start it and running, well, we can put out the word. We can amplify your message. And, of course, if it's something folks want to travel to, I think if nothing else, you've got a whole lot of libertarians who are, and I think this is part of a broader conversation that be held some other night, but there's a lot of libertarians who really looked at their activism in a fresh perspective during this year when we weren't able to get outside, we weren't able to do things. And as people reevaluate the purposes in their life, they understand that there's a calling here for a lot of folks. And I've begun to see that across all ages. I've seen that in retirees. I've seen that in some of the very young people, by my perspective, who've shown up at conventions or are literally traveling the circuit, not just looking to hang out, but who the minute they land, they're diving right in and getting their hands dirty, helping out. It's astonishing to see. I earlier referred to the tent outside of the hotel at the Libertarian Party Convention in Pennsylvania as a revival tent. I see this, and folks, if you're in a position where you can do that, well, embrace it, because there's a scene there's kind of a thing there now. I'll just throw that out there. Get out the vote efforts. I know here in Rhode Island, the current vice chair, Mike Rinaldi, has worked overtime to find solutions in the digital age, if you will, so that we can do practice get out the vote efforts more efficiently. Is there a separate team for that in Pennsylvania, or are you still getting your arms around that, as so many affiliates are?
Well, we did for these ballot referendums to curb the government's executive overreach that we saw during the pandemic. We did send postcards. We kind of had, social media campaigns. We put out press releases. We actually sent, I don't know, something like 30,000 postcards to registered libertarians and said, yes, you can vote on the referendums, because it was during a primary and normally we wouldn't think to go. Some of our county committees even called 1,000 people in their community who were registered libertarian and said, go out and vote. You're able to vote in this election on these referendums, and they're really important. So we do that stuff, when there's something, really important like these referendums. And I think that we'll see our candidates do it as well, just because of the fact that we've gotten better at it. And, we understand that it works. So, we are just getting our arms around it, but we are actively doing that.
Right. The geofence texting is something that the presidential campaign truly mastered as the election went along. And I know we had an event for Spike in Rhode Island, and through the miracle of texting, if you will, dedicated a team really keen on developing a message and just taking advantage of the latest technology. We had people from New Jersey come up to Rhode Island to meet Spike, and Spike is that kind of guy. I think he's worth the ride, but it's still startling to see it happen. And in a state like Pennsylvania, where again, every imaginable type of city, every imaginable type of environment, every imaginable type of industry, every imaginable type of university. It's the complexity is breathtaking. And, in states like big states, Pennsylvania, Florida, California, especially, where you've got multiple pockets of population, and the ability to embrace this type of technology is critical going forward, because to a certain degree, it evens the playing field a little bit with us and the duopoly. Talking about diversity in the community and the type of markets that you have around the country, media is obviously a huge part of that. And it was funny because you did a phone call that afternoon that you were there, or I should say the Sunday after you were elected, because people were aware, by the way, out in, as we love to say in the normies, out there in outside of the libertarian bubble in Pennsylvania, people were aware of the fact that there was a convention going on, and that was a big deal, and that was impressive. But what are your plans in terms of messaging to the media? What are your thoughts there?
Well, we have a media relations committee, and actually, I have a wonderful press release that one of our members helped write that we're hoping to get out, either tomorrow or the next day after they give it the go-ahead. So we've gotten really good at getting press releases into local papers. Stephen Warhafek, who's the chair of Westchester County, is a marketing guy, and he just writes good press releases. So he has kind of developed a formula where he gives this to the counties and, asks them to release it to their local media markets. So, that has been, it's something that sometimes he gets published 5 or 6 times. So it's something that we're definitely developing. We have been playing with the texting as well. And we also just recently realized that we can use a bulk mail permit, and we're offering that to our candidates and counties. So if they do want to do direct mail, if they do it through the state party, they can get a discount of about half. So we're starting to offer these in, the texting and so on and so forth, the formulaic press releases that will get picked up. We're trying to offer these resources to our counties and candidates to help them get in the media, and it's working. It's something that we're getting really good at really fast. Right.
Earned media. Do you have any sense of where you're at with that, both in I think of radio because I'm a radio guy, but radio and newspaper. Have you been able to take advantage of that in the past? And is this media team, are they going to, there's an art form that can take years to having a persistent presence in the press, particularly when you don't have that major party status in some states, and you have to, in a sense, overcome, if you will, the obstacles put in your behalf by the state with a capital S. What type of presence do you feel you have right now?
It's pockets right now. In Chester County, they're getting published a lot. During the Dale Kearns campaign in 2018, he was getting published in Delaware County all the time. The Pittsburgh radio station that, I called into and put me on the air last Sunday has been very good to us. And I was actually really surprised because I called and I'm like, hey, I'm the newly elected chair of the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania. And I heard you guys are talking. They're like, we're going to put you on the air. Like, no questions asked. I could have been anybody, but they put me on the air. So, I only got a couple minutes, but that was great. But right now, like I said, it's pockets. There's a few places where we do it very well. And we're recognizing that it's something that there is a formula to it. You do have to develop relationships. And we're hoping to get that process well documented and train people so that we can expand it across the state.
Right. No, I understand. Finally, before we get into what we call shameless self-promotion, I'd love you just to spend a couple of minutes just, I guess I'd classify you as like a 10 or 15 year overnight success. You've been in the trenches at every single level. And so you've got the sort of field, battle hardened, battle rattle going on that people need to be a state chair. Right now, I believe that there are unprecedented opportunities for the libertarian movement and the libertarian philosophy. If you were to give me 2 or 3 issues that the state of Pennsylvania is screaming at, I know you mentioned one, which is governmental overreach, but in terms of non-COVID, in terms of the general world, if COVID hadn't happened, what are a handful of issues that are just critical in Pennsylvania?
Well, Pennsylvania always, talks about energy, fracking, the coal industry. It's very divisive. It's always talked about, with the pipelines and stuff being shut down now, that's something that the citizens here are really concerned about. Of course, there are, the policing issues and the police brutality issues that, have sprung up all over the country. I think that we are probably on the cusp of, marijuana decriminalization. We've seen it in local municipalities and it's being talked about at the state level. We have gun owners, we have GOA, Gun Owners of America, who are doing, these Second Amendment sanctuaries. I've been working with them up in, the Northeast, where they're going around and getting petitions and, trying to, pass these ordinances to, make sure that, our Second Amendment rights are, continued. So, there's a lot of issues that are important. It depends on the area you're in, whether you're in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh or the rest of the state. What, the biggest deal is, what affects people directly. But, overall as Pennsylvanians, those are big ones. They keep coming up again and again in the news. But of course, right now it's, pandemic lockdowns, vaccine passports, all of those things that, we can scream at a brick wall all we want to about it. We're a, very small party, but until we build some of those outside coalitions and are able to, join that broader movement, we're not going to have as big of a voice as we would like to. We need to get more people elected before we're going to be able to actually change policy on it. So I think that, building coalitions is going to be very, very important to us in the coming years.
Final thought before we do shameless self-promotion. You had a minute or two just to really address the entire party. Imagine everyone's in the room listening, sort of your a Jen Moore fireside chat. Give us a minute or two as to what you'd like to say to everybody right now.
Sure. Well, first of all, I just want to thank everybody who's giving me a chance and working with me, because I know that things are tough right now. There aren't enough of us and we need all hands on deck. We say it all the time, and I know that, talking about unity rings hollow, but we need to find things that we can work on together, whether that be messaging or ballot access or whatever's important to you. And the thing that I would tell everybody is that your local affiliate is the place that you need to be. That's where the real work happens. We're a bottom-up organization. So please, please go get involved in your local county. I guarantee you'll have a great time. They're usually great people. And, just start working there from the bottom. There's so much to be done. The state and the national level is where we worry about things like financial reports and, boring legal, terminology and things like that. Go have a beer or have dinner with your local committee and, just enjoy the libertarian camaraderie because it's so important. And I think that with the pandemic and so many Zoom meetings, we haven't been able to do enough of that lately.
It'd be fun if everybody could just shut down social media and turn their local tavern into their Facebook page, wouldn't it?
It would. We need to get back to more plotting revolution and brewery basements.
There you go. Well said. Well said. This is my favorite part of the show. We call it shameless self-promotion. I just want to say I spoke to Liz and a few of the folks there. You're in the formulation stages, I believe, for an event later on this year in Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania. I always get a kick out of that. Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania will always be near and dear to my heart. In the year 1979, I got a $250 speeding ticket with my friend in Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania on our way to Slippery Rock. But you've got an event going on then. And then tell us a little bit about what and it's preliminary, it's in early stages, but also tell us about how folks can volunteer, where they can reach you on social media, your website, all the good stuff. Lay it out for us. Make it easy.
Sure. You can always reach me by email at chair@lppa.org, or I have a chair page on social media that is Jennifer Moore, LPPA chair. You can always message me there. Those are probably the best ways to get me. After you get a hold of me there, I'd be happy to give you my phone number if you want to have a conversation. I'm on Signal. I'm in various like Slack and Discord groups that, you may see me there anyway. So I just, the outpouring of support and the new people that I've met this past week has been amazing. So, but yeah, Liz does have that event coming up in September. So I would encourage everyone to come. She's just got a great lineup of speakers and she is one of our best candidates. She collected over 1,000 signatures and was kicked off the ballot in 2020 because she was 20 short. She collected those signatures during a pandemic. She deserves all of our support. So please come to that fundraiser event and, come and see her because she is one of our best and she really speaks the message. She believes in volunteerism. She's always out in her community. Look her up, Liz Terwilliger, and I hope to see everybody up there in Jersey Shore.
Excellent. Excellent. And by the way, Liz we attempted to have her join us the Friday night of the Pennsylvania Convention. Through the miracle of 3G, we weren't able to get a clean enough signal. Yeah. She's going to be on in another week or so. And we look forward to having that conversation, as well as you've got a great governor candidate running who looks like he's going to make a hell of a statement as well. So, the future is astonishingly bright in Pennsylvania. And, I want to congratulate you and the entire state as they come together as a unit to fight the omnipotent state. And in this case, the omnipotent state being the fine folks, the Solons, the wise men and women, if you will, of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And they need I can quote from one of my favorite movies of all time, a great film noir, The Blues Brothers. Those folks need a little churching, don't they?
Pat, I want to circle back to your Friday night guest because I'm a ballot access person. I know that she has been looking for petitioners for mayor of New York. You have to be a New York resident, but if you are interested in petitioning for her, please get a hold of her. She's paying and, she needs people to help get her on the ballot.
Right. And that brings up the bigger point about this show. We are a nation of libertarians. We are an accumulation of libertarians who happen to share a certain geographic boundary. But at the same time, the point of these shows, the point of LPTV, is to bring us together because we've got shared goals. We've got a common belief system that's been put into political poetry, our statement of principles. Our statement of principles is unequaled in modern political times. Our platform is truly the work and the consensus and the conscience, if you will, of a community that speaks to literally every major issue. And I never cease to be amazed that every crisis that comes up, we can respond with a clear voice because of our statement of principles and our party platform. And so when you see candidates around the nation, whether it be Liz Terwilliger, whether it be Stacey Pressman, whoever, send them a couple bucks. It's as much the thought as it is the money. The money's damn important, by the way. Send them a couple of bucks. If you can volunteer digitally for them from around the country, because, we get Stacey nominated, we get Liz, onto the ballot. We get them on the ballot. Those are going to be worthy candidates of a quiet night spent on a phone through the miracle of IP, right? Making phone calls to New York City and Pittsburgh, PA, and wherever your voice can take you. Everyone in this party can look beyond a lot of the chaos that appears on social media and the chaos that appears on these national issues, and everyone can find, I'll call it, libertarian solace at the local level. There's an opportunity for everyone to refocus if they're frustrated or exhausted by anything going on, and refocus on the heart and soul of this party, which is the candidates running for auditor, running for Congress, running for state rep, running for town council, running for water board, running for one of my favorites of all time, a mass transportation district. There's opportunities for all of us. So again, joining us this Friday night is going to be Stacey Pressman. She's going to be on at 9:00 time. Same bat time, same bat station. Listen, to everyone in Pennsylvania, congratulations. The future is incredibly light. And Jen, again, thank you so very much for joining us tonight.
So, Pat, I know I started out talking about the difficulty of the convention, but can I share a couple of my favorite parts?
Absolutely, please.
So we had a pie in the face contest or fundraiser, and I was just dreading this. Like, I just didn't want to do it. And the outgoing chair, Steve Sheets, bought my pie for $120, and he just wound it up like he was going to nail me with it. And he threw it right over my shoulder and said, "Oops, missed." And then as the convention was ending, Steve also gave me this gift. Now, I mean, you've met me in person now. You know that I'm, 5'9" and blonde and of Scandinavian descent. So there's always, the joke about me using my axe as the gavel. So he buys me this actual Viking axe. Excellent. It has actual runes on it. How ridiculous is this? So I guess this is the new chair gavel.
Listen, if that's what it takes, or I'll use even a better example. If in fact you're leading the raiding party, okay, to the State House and the Harris, and I got to imagine there's always big steps going up to the top, right? And you're charging up the steps Rocky style. All right. And you've got the horde behind you. And by the way, how many libertarians are there in a horde? Right.
Hopefully all 47,000 in Pennsylvania.
Right. And you've got, and we all know they got all the tats and the piercings. So all we need is a few lit bonfires. And I expect to see you charging Rocky style up those steps with that axe. How about that?
Well, the only thing that I have to say is that good ideas don't require force.
Yeah, but force can be fun at times, right? If it's used on the duopoly, right?
Hopefully I don't need, my gavel axe, but I have it just in case.
There you go. Wear it with pride.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Pat.
Thank you. Listen, you've been listening to the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight, a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee. Valerie Sarwak as chair, and of course, the Libertarian National Committee. Joe Bishop Henchman, again, serving as chair. As always, a big thank you to John Gapso, running our big board here. He's the one that gives you the fun graphics and the answers to the questions and the maps and all the crazy stuff. My name is Pat Ford. It is profoundly an honor to have this opportunity to speak to all of you. Again, Friday night, Stacey Pressman running for the mayor of New York City. We'll see you then. Have a wonderful week. Thank you.